Welcome to our first edition of the Analyst Conference. Here with me are our consumer industry experts. We have Justin Cheng and Mr. Andy De La Cruz.
Hi, hi.
Alright, so first of all, let's talk about the industry in 2019.
Okay.
Ano bang mga expectations natin dyan?
Industry 2019.
Yes.
Well, as we
This
said,
year.
I think we released a report a couple of weeks ago. We really expect 2019 to be a better year for consumers compared to 2018. Kasi 2018, you see inflation, diba? It has been a top of the town. 6.6% yung high niya. Right now, as evidenced by January inflation, it's getting lower.
Mababa.
So 4.4% in January 2019. Kahit nung January 2018, hindi pa mataas yung inflation. So kahit low base siya, mababa pa yung inflation. So maybe in the middle of the year, we'll see inflation lower than 4%. Maybe.
Pero to a common investor, bakit importante na bakit naging maganda yung pagbaba ng inflation? Tingin niyo.
Well, for one, it talks about, shows you consumer confidence already. When inflation is pretty high, people looking to spend on their goods will see ang taas na ng presyo, ang taas na bibilihin, and it could affect their spending as well.
Right.
So for consumer companies, that would be bad since they might suffer from lower sales.
Tama. So, kung alam mong tataas yung presyo, ayaw mong gumastos minsan.
Not as much. You
Not as
won't
much,
spend as
right.
much.
Aside from that, consumer companies itself will benefit from much slower inflation. Kasi before, ang bilis na inflation, kailangan nila taasan yung prices nila para ma-keep yung profit margin nila. That's hitting companies last year, consumer companies. Ngayon, it's not that bad.
Saka some consumers are also a bit elastic on their spending.
That's
Tumaas
right.
ang presyo.
That's right. Kaya last year, hindi sila kayang ganun kataas. Only some can do it.
And I guess some consumer companies can also increase their prices that much. No?
Yeah, they have to absorb the cost of that.
Okay. At least a bit of the high cost.
Yeah.
Inflation. Okay, so I think in the previous discussion we've had with some of our experts also, na-mention nila yung rice prices. Ganun ba ka-importante yung rice prices in the inflation equation last year? I mean, ganun ba siya ka-drastic?
A big percentage of the basket kasi a big portion of it is rice.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly the number, but a substantial amount, di ba? Kasi Filipinos din naman. When you have your 3 meals a day, rice is a big
Rice,
part.
lagi may rice.
And what's with rice inflation is ang laki ng sinutok niya. I don't remember the exact percentage, but maybe around 8-9% if you jump that much.
Yes.
So that was actually one of the larger contributors to the higher inflation.
Okay.
Kaya important.
And you were talking about the basket, meaning the consumer price index, which is the average 300, 400 goods.
Yes.
What a normal Filipino spends on.
Yeah.
Okay, alright.
Pero sa companies, it's not the same.
Okay.
So it's usually the higher, for example, let's say restaurant, yung cost nila, highest maybe, let's say chicken, beef, or pork.
Okay.
Then nasa lower end lang yung nasa lower half yung rice. So it's not really a big impact.
At least for firms.
At least for firms.
But for
the inflation equation,
yes.
big impact.
But for consumers, spending less because inflation is
Yes,
high, it's a big problem.
That's why you can also take a look where we mentioned yung core inflation, which excludes yung mga volatile prices. Kasi as Andy said, yung ibang consumer companies naman, they sell more pizza and things like that. But even core inflation kasi has subsided na rin which is a positive signal for the industry.
Oo. Kasi yung core inflation, the part of inflation that barely moves, less cyclical siya. Meaning, if this one goes up, it's gonna go high in the foreseeable future.
Yes.
Ito, madalas tanongin ng mga clients natin sa World. So, ano pa yung mga concerns na sa tingin nyo hindi pa na-discount ng market? Kasi alam natin, inflation is most likely going to go down moving forward. But are there things that you are looking at closely now that could disrupt your expectation? Tingin nyo, ano mga concerns na nakikita nyo? What would surprise you, Andy or Justin?
Well, there are a lot of concerns, no? Syempre. Hindi. The usual things that we are talking about now is still a concern. Nevertheless.
Okay.
So, for example, inflation, our outlook naman namin is better this year, but for example, why? We don't control that. Global yun eh. And it's really political. So if the OPEC decides to what?
Cut
Cut production, shoot up na naman yung prices. And with the additional trade law, excise tax of the oil of gas this year, diba? So that could impact companies. Every cent you spend on gas is a cent wasted. Parang ganun dapat yung outlook for companies. So that's something. And of course, maybe the upcoming elections. We're seeing, at least for some companies, we're seeing good numbers because of elections. Pero if may nangyaring iba, then maybe not. So baka nag-shift yung focus ng consumers to other companies, not consumer companies. Usually kasi, from my side, for example, restaurants, Jollibee is the main beneficiary of the election spending. So that's some things we can look at.
Yes. Like for instance, when you're talking about yung pagtaas ng presyo ng langis, yan, could potentially upset inflation further. Right? And also sa election, pag may mga masamang nangyari sa election, I guess, or some violence or some unexpected result that is really, well, unexpected.
Yes.
How about you? Any...
Actually, one of the things I'm looking at, also on the election spending, I think it's something I'm closely looking at because aside from maybe a negative surprise, it will also be positive. I just think we should take a look at same-store sales for the retailers. If there will be a stronger bump in same-store sales in this election. Although expectations aren't as bullish because it's only a midterm election. So, well, historically we've seen the improvement in terms of household consumption, but since it's midterm elections, if the same-store sales suddenly jumps maybe 2-3% higher, that would surprise me because I'm not seeing a big impact this year or a substantial impact.
So yung positive or negative surprise is only with regard to the same-store sales growth and other
Yes,
things,
that's
and not
one-
the result of the
The election.
Not the result of the
Yeah.
election.
Okay, alright.
Not very much.
Clear. It's clear na.
We're not very much directly related to that.
Okay.
Indirectly maybe, but nothing we can quantify.
Alright. As a general concept, what strategy would you recommend to our COL premium customers who are looking into the consumer industry?
Right now, if you look at the past month, consumer stocks, big names, Jollibee, yours, have been rising consistently. So ngayon, we think that it's quite expensive. So what we suggest is, for our investors, maybe you can put money, of course, but stay on the sideline first. And then maybe focus on those stocks that are neglected or discounted at the moment, which also have good fundamentals.
Yes.
So parang wala nang problema, pero hindi lang napapansin kasi small cap.
Pero ako, Justin, ang question ko dyan, some big companies are really expensive. Anong diskarte doon? Right? Kasi, for instance, Jollibee. Ako, personally, I invest in Jollibee. But it's so very expensive. So ano bang diskarte dapat ng mga investors natin?
Maybe you could look at historical valuations, compare current valuations to its historical valuation. Is it trading above its average PE or not? And then once you see that, you can now determine, are you looking to buy or stay on the sidelines first, as Andy said, diba? You can always be looking at pullbacks kasi, diba? You can wait for corrections in the market on a company you like and say, pag umabot siya ng maybe, I don't know, a standard deviation away from yung average PE niya, pwede mo na siyang bilhin or mag-invest ka na ng konti.
So, you're saying, hindi din dapat ultimate basis yung PE ng industriya. For instance, when you're picking an expensive company, you can also look at its historical price to earnings or historical valuation. Because these good companies will always trade expensive.
And just like what Andy covers, like Jollibee, always above our fair value.
So the thing with Jollibee kasi, yun nga, as you said, it's always expensive. 30, 40 times PE. And that's normal for Jollibee. Pag ibang restaurants yan, pipikit ka eh, totoo ba to? Pero kay Jollibee hindi, totoo yan. So I think for Jollibee, some rare instances like Jollibee, there are a couple of factors that people really like Jollibee. Diba? Top 10 as a world, as a fast food restaurant.
Yes.
They're growing internationally because they keep on acquiring international brands. So for Jollibee, I think it's best to compare Jollibee, with its past performance.
Okay.
Not with the restaurant industry as a whole.
Right.
Okay.
Yung standard deviation mo pa, ano ba yun?
Ah,
They would ask eh. So a simple way to know it, kunyari, if Andy's talking about an average P of 30, anong magandang, if it falls to 25, 20, ganun ba yun? Or anong magandang rule of thumb? At
Well,
least for customers.
if you cannot compute yung standard deviation,
Yes.
kasi that would require you to have like the historical
Yeah.
PE for several years.
Mm.
And if you don't have access to that data or ayaw mo nang i-compute yung data sa Excel, maybe just try a percentage discount dun sa average PE.
Yes. And a good discount is?
Well, I wouldn't say like an exact rule of percentage, but I don't know, maybe, let's see, maybe 10%, 20%. Kasi for example, on the retailer's end, pag mga average siguro niya, baka mga 20 times, 19 times, maybe a 10%, 10 to 15% discount kasi mga 17 times, medyo pwede ka nang I think you could already like take a look and consider investing some of your cash into the stock.
So 10 to 15%, pwede ka na ma-excite.
I guess so. It's also
Okay.
similar kasi to yung fair value upside, di ba? Mga 10, 15%, parang that's like the minimum you want.
Excite na ako.
Na-excite ka na. Alright.